5 women, 5 different centuries, 5 escapes that should have been impossible. History loves to tell us about men who fought for freedom. Spartacus, Toussaint Louverture, Frederick Douglass, all legends, all deserving of their fame. But there were women who did the same thing. Women who refused to accept their chains. Women who fought back so hard they became legends themselves. And most people have never heard of them. Let's fix that. Number 1. Harriet Tubman, United States, 1800s. Yeah, you know this name, but I guarantee you don't know the full story. Harriet Tubman was born enslaved in Maryland around 1822. When she was 12, an overseer threw a 2-pound weight at another enslaved person. Missed. Hit Harriet in the head instead. Fractured her skull. Nearly killed her. Left her with seizures and visions for the rest of her life. Most people would be disabled by that. Harriet used it as cover. She let her enslavers think she was simple-minded. Let them underestimate her. In 1849, she learned she was about to be sold, so she escaped. Made it to Pennsylvania, to freedom. And here's where most people would stop. Build a new life. Stay safe. Enjoy freedom. Not Harriet. She went back. Into Maryland. Into Virginia. Into slave states where she could be captured, tortured, and killed. And she didn't go back once. She went back 13 times. She brought out 70 people. Family members, friends, complete strangers. Anyone who wanted freedom. The slavers called her Moses. Put a bounty on her head. $40,000. That's nearly $1 million in today's money. They never caught her. Not once. Because Harriet was brilliant. She traveled on Saturday nights because newspapers didn't print on Sundays, so wanted posters came out late. She used the North Star for navigation. She followed rivers so dogs couldn't track her scent. And she carried a gun. Not to shoot slavers, to shoot escapees who wanted to turn back. She told them straight up, "You're free or you're dead, but you're not going back to tell them our roots." Nobody turned back. During the Civil War, Harriet became a spy for the Union Army, then a scout, then a military commander. She led the Combahee River Raid in South Carolina, a military operation that freed 750 enslaved people in one night. First woman to lead an armed military expedition in American history. After the war, she fought for women's suffrage, opened a home for elderly formerly enslaved people, lived to be 91, never caught, never stopped, never gave up. Number 2, Nanny of the Maroons, Jamaica, 1700s. You're born in West Africa, Ashanti warrior tradition. Then you're kidnapped, shipped across the Atlantic, and arrive in Jamaica. British plantation, sugarcane fields that kill people in months. Average life expectancy for an enslaved person on a Jamaican sugar plantation? 5 years. The work is designed to kill you and replace you. You have other plans. You escape, run into the Blue Mountains. Terrain so rough the British can't follow. And you don't just survive, you build. You create a community of escaped slaves. Hundreds of people. Hidden villages. Sustainable farms. A whole functioning society. The British call you Maroons, from the Spanish word meaning wild or untamed. You wear it like a crown. But Nanny doesn't stop at freedom. She becomes a military commander. She organizes guerrilla warfare against British plantations, raids supply lines, frees more enslaved people, teaches them to fight. The British send soldiers, professional military, trained fighters with guns and artillery. Nanny defeats them, again and again and again. How? Strategy. She knows every inch of that terrain. Ambushes from high ground, hit-and-run tactics, psychological warfare that breaks enemy morale before fighting even starts. Legend says she could catch bullets with her hands and throw them back at British soldiers. Obviously not literal. But the legend matters, because it means she was so effective, so untouchable, that British soldiers thought she had supernatural powers. The British fight this war for decades, lose hundreds of soldiers, spend fortunes, and eventually, they give up. They sign a treaty with escaped slaves, recognizing their independence, their land rights, their sovereignty. Nanny of the Maroons forced the British Empire to negotiate as equals. She's now a national hero of Jamaica. Her face is on their $500 bill. Number 3, Dandara, Brazil, 1600s. Brazil had more enslaved Africans than anywhere else in the Americas, more than the US, more than the Caribbean combined. 4 million people, stolen from Africa. worked to death on sugar plantations. And in the Brazilian interior, there was a kingdom, Palmares, built entirely by escaped slaves. It lasted 100 years. At its peak, 20,000 people, multiple towns, farms, an army, its own government, its own laws. Dandara was a warrior in that army, and eventually a leader. We don't know much about her early life. The Portuguese destroyed most records when they finally conquered Palmares in 1694. But we know this: she was a master of capoeira, a Brazilian martial art disguised as dance. See, enslaved people weren't allowed to fight, weren't allowed weapons, weren't allowed to train, so they danced. And in that dance, kicks, sweeps, strikes, acrobatics that could break bones. The Portuguese saw dancing. The enslaved saw combat training. Dandara fought in multiple battles defending Palmares. She was part of the leadership council alongside King Zumbi, made strategic decisions, commanded troops. When the Portuguese finally mounted a full military assault in 1694, they brought 6,000 soldiers, professional army, artillery, siege weapons, against 20,000 civilians and a few thousand fighters. Palmares held out for months. The Portuguese lost hundreds of soldiers, but eventually the walls fell. The king was captured and executed. Dandara refused to surrender, even when escape was impossible, even when death was certain. Legend says she threw herself off a cliff rather than be enslaved again. She chose death over chains. Today, she's a symbol of black resistance in Brazil. Her name is on schools, streets, monuments. There's a municipality named after her, because she proved something important. Freedom isn't given, it's taken. Number 4, Mary Prince, Bermuda/Antigua, 1800s. Mary Prince did something different. She didn't fight with weapons, she fought with words. Born enslaved in Bermuda in 1788, sold multiple times, beaten, tortured, forced to work in salt ponds that destroyed her health. She married a free black man named Daniel James, started saving money, planning. In 1828, her enslavers took her to London. Big mistake. Slavery was illegal in England. Complicated legal situation, but Mary could leave, just walk away. So she did, walked out, found abolitionists who would help her. The Anti-Slavery Society took her in, but Mary did something unprecedented, something dangerous. She told her story. She dictated her autobiography to Susanna Strickland, The History of Mary Prince, a West Indian Slave, published in 1831, first autobiography by a black woman published in Britain, and it became a bestseller. And it was brutal. Mary didn't soften anything, didn't make it palatable. The beatings, the torture, the casual cruelty, the dehumanization, all of it. British people read it and were horrified. They knew slavery existed. They knew it was bad, but they didn't know the details. Mary gave them details, names, dates, specific incidents, real testimony. Her book became ammunition for abolitionists. They quoted it in Parliament, used it in pamphlets, distributed it at public meetings. Her former said she made it up, said she was lying. The trial turned into a referendum on slavery itself. Mary testified, in court, under oath, describing exactly what happened to her. She won. The case was dismissed. Her book is directly credited with helping push through the Slavery Abolition Act of 1833, which freed 800,000 enslaved people across the British Empire. Mary Prince fought with words and changed history. Number 5. Escrava Anastasia, Brazil, 1700s. She never escaped, not physically, but she became a legend anyway. Anastasia was enslaved in Brazil in the early 1700s. Stories say she was extremely beautiful, high cheekbones, striking eyes, which made her enslavers' wives jealous, violently jealous. They couldn't handle their husbands looking at an enslaved woman, so they did something monstrous. They forced Anastasia to wear an iron mask, a faceplate that covered her mouth and lower face, locked behind her head, for years. Some accounts say her entire adult life. She couldn't eat properly, could only drink liquids, couldn't speak clearly. The metal cut into her skin, caused infections, constant pain. It was torture, pure torture, designed to break her spirit. It didn't work. Stories say she helped other enslaved people anyway, healed them with herbs, gave them hope through her eyes since she couldn't speak, prayed with them. She couldn't fight, couldn't run, couldn't speak, but she could endure. And in that endurance, she became a symbol. When she finally died, young, from infections the mask caused, enslaved people started praying to her. Not officially. The Catholic Church never canonized her. But enslaved Brazilians didn't wait for permission. They built shrines in secret, prayed to her for healing, for strength, for endurance. And those shrines, they never stopped. Today there are hundreds of shrines to Anastasia across Brazil. Thousands of people visit them every year, leave flowers, light candles, pray. The Catholic Church still doesn't recognize her, but the people do. She never escaped slavery physically, but she escaped in memory, in spirit, in legacy. Because they could chain her body, they could mask her face, but they couldn't mask what she meant to people. Hope, endurance, the refusal to be broken. What connects these 5 women? Different centuries, different continents, different strategies. But they all said the same thing. You don't own me. Nanny said it with warfare. Harriet said it with rescue missions. Dandara said it with her last breath. Mary said it with words. Anastasia said it by surviving. 5 different forms of resistance, but all resistance. All refusal. All defiance. Why these stories matter? Because we need to stop thinking of enslaved people as passive victims waiting to be saved. These women were warriors, strategists, writers, symbols, heroes. History tried to forget them. Records were destroyed. Stories were suppressed. Names were erased. We're not going to let that happen. These women deserve to be remembered, not for how they suffered, but for how they fought back.